summary. So it's
Okay.
kind of
Will all
in
of
between
the-
minutes.
Yeah, will all of the county representatives, their names be listed?
Yes,
And their departments?
yes, that'll all be.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Our agenda tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to have transit, go ahead and talk about existing transit and future planned transit service in the area. And then we have Bob, who's going to talk about economics and demographics for the study area. And then Shalindra is going to take us through what happens at the Charrette event and how the public participation process works. Okay. Are there any questions on the agenda? Okay, we'll get started then. Monica, are you going to do the presentation for transit? Okay.
How do I move this forward and back?
The top is the point.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Monica Cejas. I'm with Miami-Dade Transit. Thank you for joining us tonight. I want to share with you a little bit about our existing transit service. Right now we have on Kendall Drive, am I blocking the present time? On Kendall Drive, we currently have two types of services. We have the 88, which is a local route. It stops just about every block, and it has around 15 to 20 minute service. You also have the Kendall Cruiser, which is the limited stop type of route. It stops every half a mile to every 3/4 of a mile. That route it runs every 12 minutes. That route we started in June 2010. It actually has 9 articulated buses. Those are the big 60-foot buses that you see on Kendall Corridor. They have Wi-Fi. Which means you connect to the internet while riding the bus. We also have signal priority. Transit signal priority means that the bus can communicate with the signals. If the signal is green, it'll keep the signal green so the bus can move forward. If the signal is red, it'll truncate the red and change it to green. We do have that on several intersections, but it has limited capability. We're in the process of upgrading the signal so they can better communicate with our buses. That particular route has a lot of great features that it serves as a test pilot for our premium transit service. One feature that it has that none of our other routes have is that you can go on our transit web app. We have an application that you can go in and check real time where that bus is. As you all know, it's very frustrating to get to a bus stop and the bus is not there. You don't know when the next bus is coming. Well, this application, you can actually go online and it'll tell you at a physical stop, it'll tell you exactly in how many minutes your bus is arriving. The other convenient features that this route has is we have 2 park and rides that you could park your car and leave it there during the day and then take the bus to Dayland North where you connect to Metro Rail. We have a park and ride at Kendall and 162nd Avenue, which is, it has about 40 parking spaces, so it's not very big, and it gets full every day. It's always at capacity. But we do have signs out there letting people know that we do have another park and ride at Kendall Drive and 150th Avenue across the street from Target, which is the Baptist Church. We're currently leasing 109 parking spaces at the Kendall Church, the Baptist Church, for your convenience. A lot of people don't know about it, so please share with your friends that we do have a park and ride that's available for your use. And okay, so that's as far as the existing service. Let's move on to the short term.
Oh, she did the point.
There we go. This is where Monica hands it off to me. Good evening again. My name is Jerry Bryan. I'm Chief of Planning and Scheduling for Miami-Dade Transit. A good way to describe what Monica and I do, we're both planning. She's more the mid and long range planner for the transit system. I'm the short range planner. I deal with things that are coming online within the next 6 to 12 months. And what I want to talk to you about are the service changes that are going to be going into effect on November 25th, just the 24th, in about 2 weeks. We change our bus routes twice a year, in June and November. And as part of our slate of November changes, we have 14 different routes that are changing of our 93. Specific to the West Kendall area is the Route 88, and I just want to walk you through what the changes are going to be on the Route 88, effective again on November 24th. This is the 88 route. It runs from the Dade Landor Station all the way out to the West Kendall Transit Terminal. I've got it color-coded here, and I'll get into that in a minute. Basically what it does is heading westbound, it comes out Kendall Drive with 20-minute peak frequency during the morning and afternoon rush hours, and 30 minutes frequency of service during the off-peak, the rest of the time of the day. When it gets out to Southwest 132nd Avenue, it splits off, where every other trip goes up into Kendall Lakes, and the other trips go out west on 88 out to the West Kendall Transit Terminal. The reason why it's color-coded here is this goes into the change that we're going to be putting into effect. This section of the Kendall Lakes is going to be redistributed, if you will, down into the Kendall Drive corridor. Main reason for this is ridership levels, very little use of this segment, and a lot more use of on this segment of riders. You can't see these numbers here, but I'll just walk you through it. This route in total transports about 3,000 people a day. Of that amount, 2,200 are on this yellow piece. 134 use this blue piece, and 625 a day use the green piece. To break that down, green piece. That doesn't sound like I'm talking about something else now. But to break that down into percentages, 75% of your ridership is here, 20% of your ridership is here, and 5% of your ridership is here. So by moving this service down to along West Kendall, what we will do is the service on this piece will go from 60 minutes in the off-peak time to 30 minutes. So all trips will just stay out on Kendall Drive because that's where the ridership is on this route. As far as the Kendall Lakes section, and a question that's coming up is what options are they going to have? They still have options. They have the service on Southwest 88, there's a route on Southwest 72nd, and there's a route on 137th Avenue, the 137 route and the 72 route. So options still exist for the Kendall Lakes residents. So that's essentially what is going on with our 14 service changes countywide, but the one that's specific to West Kendall. Okay. Back to Monica.
All right, so that we've covered the existing, we've covered the short term, and I'll cover the midterm and long term. Yes, sir.
I have a fast question for Jerry.
Yeah, I'm here.
How many buses are traveling the 137 route?
How many buses? That route, I believe, is on 30-minute peak and 60-minute off-peak. In terms of number of buses to accomplish that, I can't tell you, but it's enough to give you 30-minute peak service and 60-minute off-peak.
Okay. How many people are using that?
Oh boy, you would ask me that. I honestly don't know, sir. I didn't have that ridership number with me.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, midterm means projects that we are currently under development in the next 5 years. So one park and ride that we're currently developing is on Kendall and 127th Avenue. It's the southeast corner, which is, if you're familiar with the area, it's right under the FP&L lines. We're currently looking at providing 180 parking spaces, more or less. It's approximately a 3-acre site. We're still in the very early stages of design, so we still haven't gone too far. So if you have any comments, we can take those into consideration. We're looking at having that park and ride available for the public to use by the end of 2016. We're also looking for another opportunity to provide another park and ride to complement the park and ride that we have out west on 162nd. We're looking somewhere in the vicinity, somewhere between 127th and 162nd. We're looking at, obviously, available land that's currently vacant. That's number one. If it's not currently vacant, then we look at willing sellers. And if not, then we look at other opportunities that may be out there. Or we continue leasing like we are if we don't find a property to acquire.
The
Yes, sir.
FP&L easement, is that 130 cars?
No, it's 127th Avenue. and it's the southeast corner.
Across from the Home Depot.
Across from the.
And you're leasing that right now?
No, that one, the one that we're leasing is the Baptist Church, which is 150th Avenue.
So the one on 27th, you are.
On 127th, we're entering into an agreement with FP&L, a long-term lease agreement to allow us to construct the park and ride underneath the FP&L lines.
That would allow.
Yes, ma'am, and then I'll come back to you.
Just with respect to the park and rides, will you have renderings to show us? Because a lot of the things that are going in Kendall have a very low-rent kind of a look, and we greatly appreciate heavily landscaped green spaces that sort of buffer the view from the streets, and that minimizes sort of the environmental impact to the residents in the area. Will we be able to see fully illustrated renderings of what these park and rides will look like?
Yes, and usually these types of park and rides, there'll be additional public meetings during the final design stage. We're somewhere between like 15 and 30%. Once you start getting to enough level of detail and start developing those landscaping plans, there'll be public meetings. I know that they had some zoning meetings already on that, so there have been some public meetings where they did show some preliminary sketches, but those were artistic renderings from the planning stage. As you get further into development, you'll be able to have more refined and better types of renderings. But we'll make sure we'll get a copy of the people who signed in for this meeting, and we'll make sure to include you in future meetings. There was a question here, and then I'll go to both of you.
The gentleman who is the point person from Florida Power and Light expressed a concern that it's taking too long for the county to sign the agreements to lease that land, and if it doesn't happen soon, they're going to walk away from it and let the shopping center have it. There's a new electronics store being built, and they're remodeling that entire shopping center, and the shopping center has expressed an interest in having overflow parking under there. So my encouraging words to you are, don't wait till 2016. Get this deal signed, or you're not going to, FP&L is not going to go forward.
Yeah, no, actually the MOU, the maintenance of understanding, the memorandum of understanding, it's in the process of getting finalized as we speak. That's something that we don't take lightly. We have to get the agreements. We get federal, we get funding from the state, FDOT, and without those long-term agreements from FP&L, we wouldn't be able to get the funding to move forward with the design and ultimately construct.
They have expressed that concern to you.
Yeah, I know it's taken longer than anticipated. We've been trying to come to an agreement, and my understanding is it's going to happen any moment now. So the agreement has been drafted. It's just waiting for the signatures. At the last meeting that I attended for that project, they mentioned it's going to happen any minute.
And the Board of County Commissioners has to sign off on it?
On the lease agreement, Isabel, yes? Yes. We haven't taken it yet, right? Yes. Okay, there were two questions here. Yes, ma'am?
Is there any chance that you could put some kind of commercial space between Kendall and the parking garage? Because it doesn't matter how much landscaping you put, it always is hideous. And it would look more urban and less garagey if you did something other than put the garage facing Kendall Drive.
Okay. Well, we'll look at it. We normally look at, that's more when you start looking at TOD, transit-oriented development. We look at doing park and rides and doing a lining of either retail or mixed-use type of features to kind of hide the park and ride or the bus hubs in the back. But we'll certainly take a look at that.
There's no parking garage.
No, it's not a garage, it's a surface lot.
It's a certain
Can't build those
Yeah.
car lines.
Yeah, because you can go up.
Yeah, this is not a garage, it's surface parking.
I know we're specifically talking about Kendall Drive today, but Kendall Drive, the people come from all around. And a couple years ago, the commissioner out here was talking about trains going from the zoo area. Is it possible to set up a park and ride at the zoo and at Tamiami Airport, where you have large areas of land and space that's kind of county owned already, and set up the buses that will zoom down towards Dadeland North and just hook people in? Is that a way of doing
I'm
something?
glad you mentioned that. We are actually working with our Parks Department to look at opportunities of basically using their available parking during the week. Their parks are normally very busy in the weekends, so we are currently doing that on Miami Gardens Drive. So that is an opportunity.
127th where the
Yeah.
soccer fields are, there's a lot of parking there.
Yeah, we have had some conversations and we are coordinating with them. We haven't identified one for Kendall, but we'll definitely continue.
Why don't
Well-
they just identify it and didn't appoint it?
Well, we've looked at 127, but we'll.
Yeah, I like Miami Airport though, as a place where you could maybe do it, if you can look
Well,
into.
Miami Airport is actually undergoing a major redevelopment.
I know they're talking
They're doing
about it, so
something
get in on
similar
it.
to the airport in Apalaca where they're doing some retail
They're
as well.
talking about it.
And as one of the requirements for that development is that we, Miami-Dade Transit, requested a park and ride to be built as part of that development. But that's way out. That's way out.
Monica, if I
What-
could just jump in real quick, because I think there were some design-related questions or suggestions also.
Sure.
And I think during the charrette, that would be a good time, at least for within the study area, to look at and include some of those suggestions that you talked about and I think you mentioned. So that would be an opportunity for you guys to actually see how those park and rides could be developed in the future. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we'll jump into the long term, which, even though it's in the future, I want to start with the past. So let me give you a little bit of history of the actual Kendall Corridor. This project, are you all familiar with the PTP, the People's Transportation Plan? Unfortunately. Well, this is the half penny tax. This actually started in 1999, where we actually went after 1 full penny. Well, the referendum actually failed, but the list of projects was pretty large for the 1 penny. Well, what happened was, they refined the request. It wasn't the 1 penny anymore. It became a half a penny. So in 2002, when the actual referendum passed, we basically got the half penny, but the list of projects pretty much remained pretty hefty. In 2009, the then county manager, Burgess, had a public meeting, a summit, and basically we were very upfront, the county was very upfront that we overpromised as far as the type of rail improvements and what we could get done with that half penny. You mentioned the train on Kendall and through CSX. That was the original plan for the Kendall corridor. It was actually called the Kendall Link project. You may have been familiar with that. So the then county manager asked us to look at incremental improvements until such time when we can afford the ultimate project, which is the rail projects. So we started with in 2010 with the Kendall Cruiser, which was phase 1 of trying to do rapid type of transportation projects to give you better options. And we're also looking, by 2022, we're trying to expedite and identify funding. And what we're trying to do is create the Kendall Enhanced Bus Project. We are looking at doing enhanced bus projects in all the corridors that basically we had promised rail. And what that means is we're building robust stations about a mile apart. These stations will have the real-time information within towers. You'll have your station with a tower. The tower will have the next bus arriving in so many minutes. You'll also have the ticket vending machines within the tower, so you can very easily buy the Easy Card, Easy Pass. The transit signal priority that I mentioned that the Kendall Cruiser has limited capabilities. We're only able to use it on certain key intersections. Well, the Kendall Enhanced Bus will have it throughout the corridor. We're also providing queue jumper lanes and queue bypass. For those of you that don't know what queue jumping means, it means that the bus will be able to access a right turn lane. So it'll get out of the traffic, it'll go on the right turn lane, and the bus will have its own separate signal. Once the signal detects that the bus is at that right turn lane, the signal will change and the bus will be able to, in essence, jump ahead of all the traffic. Everybody else will have a red light except for the bus. The bus will have a green light, and only the bus will be able to move through the intersection to get it out of the congestion and move forward quicker. And that should give you about 15 to 20% travel time savings. So you'll be able to get from one end of the corridor to the other a lot quicker. And I think that's about it.
When will that be?
Right now, we have it in 2022, but I'm in the process of identifying the funding for that, and we'll try to expedite it as much as possible. But that's where the funding is right now.
And when you say you're referring to all the places on the corridor where we were going to have light rail, you're talking about that's going to be happening on the roads that we're presently traveling on?
No, not the light rail.
But I was not really clear with all this, with these buses and their own special lights and queue jumping and all of that. That's going to be happening on which roads?
Well, there's 8 PTP corridors, one of which was the north corridor. You have the east-west, which goes...
Can you use the actual roads? Are we talking about
Yes.
North Kendall Drive, 104th
Yes,
Street?
Kendall is the other one, 137th
Okay, so
Avenue is another.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what my question is. Rather than calling them corridors, can we actually assign names to them? So you're talking about these buses are going to be on North Kendall Drive, 104th Street, 120th, 152nd. Is this what we're talking about?
Yes, this Kendall Enhanced Bus project, in essence, will replace the Route 288, which runs along Kendall Drive. It would be the Kendall Enhanced Bus. So it would emulate rail, and it would build the ridership for the rail corridor until the rail can become feasible.
Would you give clarity to Jimmy's question? She asked also if it was going to be on 120th Street and 104th Street. I don't believe it's going to be on those two. Is it?
Right now, we don't have enhanced bus plan for 104th or 120th. We do have it on, on north-south, we have 27th Avenue, we have 37th Avenue, Douglas Road, we have, you've seen the 95 Express. East-west, we have, in this general area, we have the Candle, we have on Sunset, we have a Candle.
You got one on 56, you got 104th Street, you have
But
another
those are
one.
not enhanced bus though. Those
No,
will
they're not
still
enhanced
remain
bus, those are
limited.
regular bus routes.
Yeah, the enhanced bus are 137th Avenue will have one.
Will have, yeah.
Biscayne Boulevard will have one. Flagler will have one. Coral Reef is another one. Yes, 152nd.
A curious question. When the
I
bus,
have the list with me in the back. I can share with you.
When the
I
bus-
have it in my folder.
when the bus gets in the right lane, like it's going to make a right-hand turn, and it signals the light so it can continue going ahead, do you anticipate that somebody behind that bus is going to follow the bus and go through the light too? Because that's the most logical thing I think people will do.
Well,
Yes.
obviously there'll have to be enforcement. They're not.
So the light will change quickly after the bus passes. It'll go back to red.
Yes.
So
yes.
anybody that follows the bus will be running through a red light.
Well,
In theory.
Absolutely, in theory.
Yeah.
Normally, the bus would only get a few seconds to be able to pass. There are rules in order to have the signal change.
But
once
if
it's
you're asking
detected-
if drivers will try to tail it behind a bus?
Yeah.
So there'll be a learning curve. As soon as somebody
Yeah.
gets a ticket, they'll quit doing it.
It's Miami. Yeah. We're talking about drivers in Miami.
Well, I'm concerned that it will cause an accident.
Yeah. Okay, I have my list.
It'll cause an accident, yes.
Yeah, we have let me reply and I'll get it right back to you. The other enhanced bus projects, ma'am, that you were asking about, we have another one on Northwest 7th Avenue. I mentioned about 95, we have the Palmetto Express, Coral Way, that's another one, Coral Way. Douglas Road, I mentioned Coral Reef, thank you, sir, that was another one. 137th Avenue, I mentioned.
Those are the ones that
Biscayne.
already exist? Or
No,
they are
no, no,
going
no,
to
we're
be?
planning those. And we're in the process of developing what these stations, robust stations would look like. There are several enhanced bus projects, or they call them Rapids, the Rapids. And our buses will be also branded as Rapids. Kansas City has them, LA has it, New York has. There's many places around the country. Oregon, Eugene, Oregon has it. There's many locations. So we're trying to basically do the same and do the rapid type of enhanced bus.
Give me a timetable for that, please.
Well, all the corridors are in different time frames.
The one
So-
on Kendall Drive.
Kendall right now, it's in 2020. I'm in the process of identifying the funding in order to get that done. So each station is very costly. These are not little shelters like you see out there. I mean, these will be very big, very robust. Each station is a few $100,000. It's similar to the busway size. Busway, the stations are fairly large. These will have a lot of technology features. Like I mentioned, the tower with the real time and the ticket vending machine. So they're pretty costly. And then also the all the other components of those projects.
And this is with PTP funding?
A lot of the corridors have federal funding. We always go after federal funding because these projects become very costly. So the federal feds normally match 50% of our local funds. We also ask DOT for funding. So a lot of these corridors have DOT funding. Some have federal funding. And then if we don't have any of those, we do local funding. So transit has PTP. Our type of funding is those have PTP.
It's just a
funds.
shame that we have to wait 6 more years because the congestion on Kendall Drive warrants it happening much sooner than that. And hopefully we'll find a way to make that happen.
Yes, sir. We're in the process of identifying the funding. That's one of the things. Gary mentioned that I do long-term planning, but none of these plans are, are good unless you find the funding. So one of the things our group actually does, we do have a grants department, but I take it upon myself and my group to try to identify grants. We write grants all over the place. We go after federal grants, and I personally have written many grants with the state and have been successful, in acquiring funding for the buses and things of that sort. So I'm very aggressive. If anybody knows me, they know me as a money lady. I go after a
I
lot
can
of
vouch
money.
she's good at what she does.
Yeah.
She's good at getting money for us from the feds.
So I'm in the process. That's one of my next quarters to try to acquire the funding.
Sooner than 2020, you mean?
Hopefully, sir. Yes, I'm trying. Yes, ma'am. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I had one back there before you. And then one over here. I'll be right back. I promise her I will come back to her.
I think these plans
I'm sorry. She had her hand up for a very long time.
Me too.
I'll be right back.
I think these plans are wonderful, and I'm certainly looking forward to riding on these buses. But one thing that I hope you'll keep in mind are the paratransit services. A very good example is the 162 lot. The paratransit is not designed into that concept because the paratransit buses, they cannot load and unload paratransit riders. So when we design these new lots and these new stations, please keep in mind that the vans, how they unload and load their passengers, those have to be taken into consideration.
Very good.
They will be ADA accessible.
Thank you. Well, they are, but she has a great point. We normally focus on the bus bays, but not necessarily. We usually have a kiss and ride or a section where paratransit, as long as anybody else can drop off. But we're actually in the process of coming up with new design guidelines, and I'll make sure I incorporate that into the new guidelines. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know how you plan you're on North Kendall Drive. The traffic there is immense, as you're well aware. How do you plan to build these stop areas with these huge things where the space is not given to you in order to provide for that service that you're intending or proposing to give? How are you going to go into those roads that are highly congested at this time, bringing in huge amounts of stops within X amount of spaces that you mentioned about half a mile and half a mile from one another? How do you pretend to build those huge stops. Was that the name of that station? How do you plan to do that in the already crowded transit area or North Kendall Boulevard?
Well, we normally have movements of traffic components built into our final design plans, and depending on where we are, we'll make sure we accommodate. Those are good comments. Sometimes what we do is we build at night. We try to not have projects built.
That's not my question. How do you
Physical right away? Okay, where?
How do you find the space?
Where you gonna get the
Okay.
land?
Not the ones, once you have that already in place, how do you,
So
how do you build that area
Right.
that is going to take space for the cars in order for
No,
you to...
we're not taking space from the cars. It would be within the existing right-of-way, and at times acquiring right-of-way to fit the station.
How can you do that if the roads are already built, the sidewalks are already built, the amount of space that you have
Right.
to build them in? How are you using the word pretend? It's not the correct word.
No, I understand.
How are you planning to do this huge overhaul?
Well, we haven't planned the stations along Kendall just yet, because since the funding isn't in place as of right now, we haven't selected those specific sites. I will tell you, we have other corridors under development, and what we're doing is we've identified the locations where these stations need to fit. We always try to look for parcels that are vacant. That's our number one. If that's a possibility, those are the ones we try to acquire. We don't need to acquire the whole entire thing, probably just a little part of it, a parcel, a little section of it to fit our station. A lot of times what we do is we try, if there's businesses, we try not to impact parking. I know nobody likes to impact the landscaping area, but at times it's either affecting a little green space or affecting a parking space. So we actually go out with a multidisciplinary team to identify these locations and make the best possible decision as to which parcels we identify for right-of-way acquisition. If any, a lot of times we have the right-of-way available. But it's site-specific, and on Kendall, actually we have a little more right-of-way than in some of our other corridors, but we haven't gotten to that level of detail on Kendall as of yet. But definitely in order to fit the stations, either the right-of-way has to be there, or we have to go out and acquire little pieces of it. Hopefully I answered it.
Monica?
If not, I can talk to you later. Any other questions? One more?
Yes, I wanted to know when you were going to do the Coral Way one at the Northwest 7th. Is it Northwest 7th Street?
It's Northwest 7th Avenue. By the way, all of our plans are online. This is what we call the Transit Development Plan. Our Transit Development Plan is our 10-year visioning document. If you go on Miami-Dade.gov, if you look under Transit, the Transit Department, there's a section on the left side that talks about reports, and then you can look at download our report. Right now, 20 Northwest 7th Avenue.
No, not Northwest 7th.
I'm sorry.
Coral Way.
Coral Way, we're actually looking at starting in 2015. We're actually working very closely with the city of Miami, and Jerry. What happened to Jerry? He walked out. Okay. Well, city of Miami is looking at is starting a circulator. Have you seen the trolleys the city of Miami are operating now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Some of you have. City of Miami is looking at doing a shuttle. Jerry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You wanna? They asked about Coral Way, and I started to talk about City of Miami and how they're doing their municipal route.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is we're basically coordinating with them. They're going to do the short trips, and we're going to do the long trips.
Right.
So you can talk about that.
Yeah, well, our 24 route, which goes along Coral Way, runs all the way presently into downtown. We are going to terminate it at the Brickell Metro Rail Station, and the section from from Ponce and Coral Gables into the Brickell Station, we're going to go into limited stop mode with the 24 route. It's not going to serve every bus stop. The reason for that is the City of Miami has their trolley that they just started up October 1st on Coral Way that will be serving every stop. So there's no reason to totally duplicate their service. So this will speed up to 24 for those who use that to get into town. And we're going to terminate at the Brickell Station where you can ride Metro Rail, you got the people mover there, and you got other routes that get around. So that's what we try to do. We try to leverage our services with what the municipalities provide so we don't have redundancy.
Okay, there's one here and then one there.
Just have a question. Do your buses support people riding bicycles?
Yes.
Are you able to load your bikes on all your
We have
all
bike
your
racks
buses?
on all of
There's
them.
bike racks in the front. There's space for 2 bicycles. We're in the process of exploring 3. There's a bike rack that allows for 3 bicycles, and there's even racks for 4 bicycles out there. So we're in the process of looking at that. We do have some routes that are very heavy on bicycle usage, and unfortunately, once the racks are full, we can't allow any more bicycles. So we're in the process of doing a study that's identifying those particular routes that are very heavy for bicycle usage. We're looking at maybe providing the racks, the additional racks in those routes. The other thing I'm looking at is, I mentioned the enhanced bus projects. These enhanced bus projects will have the articulated, the 60-foot buses. I know in Washington State, the Swift bus or system, they actually allow the bikes to go inside the bus, and there's a pretty neat system that you ride your bicycle into it, and it locks in place, and it's very good, very safe, and convenient. And you only take a few of the passenger seats, but those buses can accommodate 100, seated. I'm sorry, 60 seated passengers. So it doesn't really take that much capacity away. But that's something that we're looking at in the future as well.
I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Do you keep track on how much our community has embraced carpooling? Are there any facts?
I don't have that information, but yes, there is. There's the South Florida commuter services. They do keep track of that. I do know that in our park and rides, we do provide premium parking for carpoolers. For example, if you go to Dayland North Park and Ride, there's a whole row of carpooling parking spaces right next to the elevators. And all the new park and rides that we're developing, we're also providing premium parking spaces for carpooling and van pooling. So that is something that we recognize that is valuable. More people in one car means less cars on the road. So we do provide convenient parking to try to, get people to share a ride. But I don't have that information, but commuter services does have that. There was one back here, and then I'll go to you.
I just wanted to transition over because we're only on one topic and we have several to go in tonight, so I just wanted to wrap it up because I know we go all night on transit along and we have some planning and demographic.
Okay.
We were so popular.
I wonder why.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks,
There
Jerry.
was one lady that.
Oh, there's one more question you want to answer?
Just real quick, how can we find out what's the segment of the population that actually takes the bus? Who takes the bus? How do we know that?
How do we know?
Age. How do we know from the West Kendall population who's actually using the buses?
Well, we actually are doing surveys of our entire bus system. We're doing different garages. So, for example, we did all of our express buses. We did the Northeast garage, and I think we did Central. We're in the process of doing Coral Way. Coral Way garage is the one that houses all the routes in this area, and every passenger is provided that survey, and you provide your information. So you provide your age group, your income levels, and all that. We do keep track of all that information, so we have it available.
How do we get the results online?
Actually, the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, is the entity doing those surveys for us. If you go on their website, they also provide all the reports online, and you could see the ones that have been done already. We have to do surveys for everything. We've done surveys for the Metro Rail. We try to do it every year at different, for example, we did rail, we did the express bus, we did the Northeast garage. I think right now we may be doing Coral Way, so if that information is available, it would be posted on their site. If not, it should be soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Monica.
All right.
Thanks, Jerry. Good job. Next presenter is Bob. He's going to talk about economics and demographics for the area. Bob?
Thank you. I will be brief. I think the whole transportation congestion issue was a very dominant one, and I'm just going to say a few things about the data.
The arrow bar. The arrow bar. The arrow.
The arrow?
Yeah. Right arrow.
There.
No. Keep going. Keep going.
This one? This? Yeah, but I want to go to this. Okay. This map shows the study area, and in that black dotted line, the one aspect I wanted to comment on was that there is a significant area outside the UDB, which is that blue dotted line, urban development boundary. And there, the only right for residential is 1 unit per 5 acres. So unless there are modifications outside the UDB, that is what can happen currently. Slide. All the data that I'm going to show is from the socioeconomic data is from the census. The census has very, very detailed data. I think all we need today is kind of an overview of some of the key characteristics. The population of the study area currently is 32,500. This is a slight increase from the 2000 population. So there has been very little population growth. The second set of data is about age, and the significant thing there is that if you compare it to the county, median age is much lower at 32.5 years than the county, which is 38.2. And particularly, you'll notice the difference in the groupings of 65 and above, where they're considerably more elderly for the county as a whole than in this area. In terms of race, ethnicity, you can see that the study area has significantly higher Hispanic population, 82%, as opposed to 65% in the county. There was a notable increase of approximately 70% in 2000, which is similar to what happened as the county overall. Briefly, in terms of household structure, the thing which I think is most important here is the fact that family households constitute approximately 78% of households in the study area, as opposed to 69.5% for the county overall. And that has a lot of implications in terms of housing type, etc. Okay. In terms of housing, you can see in the study area, the vacancy is considerably below that of the county as a whole. In fact, it's almost half of what it is for the county. Essentially, there's very limited amount of vacancy. Generally speaking, 8% is what you're going to have. Very rarely you're going to go much below 8%.
Does that include apartments or just single-family homes?
Well, in a second we'll get to it, but we have a mixture of single-family homes, apartments, mid-rise, townhomes.
So all of that?
Yes, that's as a whole. One thing which we didn't show here what I wanted to mention was in terms of in terms of home ownership, which is an important variable. The owner-occupied percent in the study area is 62.5%, as opposed to 57% in the county. So you have more home ownership here, whether it be single-family homes, townhomes, or whatever, the condos. I'm not sure of the composition. The income for the study area is a little bit higher than the county overall. However, the two extremes are not as drastic as they are in the county. In other words, the county has a significant poverty rate. It's a little bit over 20%. This area, I don't have the number in front of me, is considerably lower. At the other end, this area doesn't have the very, very high levels of income, let's say 100,000 and above, that some parts of the county have. It's more in that middle range, and the average is approximately the same as the county. In terms of educational attainment, there are some differences, some important differences from the county as a whole.
In the last meeting, where we showed on the land use zoning, even in today's meeting, talked about transit, talked about the demographics. It all is helping you move towards the actual charrette process to make sure that you are empowered enough, have enough data, or if there's something that's missing, that we can provide you so that you can work towards the actual design process. Now, the word charrette has been, is thrown around. I know I see some familiar faces that were in the East Kendall Charrette also. Some of you already know, but most of you might want to know what actually happens during the week or the charrette week or the process itself. So I'm just going to walk you real quick into what all that. But I think before I get into that, also a lot of the design-related stuff that you talked about when you heard transit, for example, about can we do landscaping? How do we buffer it? Or if there's parking, how can we put some kind of actual land use in front of it? All the things are very valid, very good suggestions. We're taking those notes down, but also those are some of the things that we should be discussing during the charrette week itself, or actually on the charrette day, so that we can put it down, and I'll show you what happens as part of the process. So what is a charrette? It's the name, actually, the charrette itself is a French word. It's a French word for a cart. And it was used in the 19th century for art students that would had big drawings to be displayed at the museum or wherever, and they would just jump into the cart itself because those drawings were so big, so they had to be carted there. But they would get into the cart and keep working and trying to finish those by the time it reached the place. And that intense process of just last-minute finishing, adding stuff, is what has been, kind of borrowed for this process also. And I always like to tell this that the charrette is also the name of the cart that was used to take the citizens to the guillotine. This is not that process. So this is what happened. What is a charrette? It's an inclusive, open. You can get all, like for example, you're getting all the data. You're making sure that all the planners, if it's public works, parks, transit, they're all a part of the process. So they all can be in one place at the same time, and you can ask those questions. You can work together. And it's really a process where you kind of ask the community, because we're outsiders, we are planners, we don't really know. You guys live here, work here, travel here, you know more about this. So this is a process where we kind of all get together so we can work together in terms of what is the vision for this area? What is the future? If there has to be certain kind of development, what is it? Or if it doesn't need to happen, what are those things that we need to be careful about? And a charrette process really can also bring people together to solve community issues collectively. It's a consensus. So they're an area, they're an issue that we all can talk about it and come up with consensus that works for everybody. Respond to special conditions. Each charrette is a different, it has different issues, like we are hearing right now. So it can respond to special conditions. And it builds support, because you guys are involved, you are almost going to be the authors of this process. So it's a great way to build authorship and ownership for a plan. when you're done with this process, which is still just going to be the tip of the iceberg, you're going to come up with a whole bunch of design recommendations, or just recommendations about how to go about. And when you have a whole bunch of final recommendations, it's very important to prioritize. So let's say tomorrow funding comes in. What is the first out of those recommendations that should happen, and second and third? So through this process, you'll be able to prioritize all those improvements and recommendations also. It embeds your ideas into the planning process. So all those maps I showed earlier, if there has to be any changes, those can come through you, And it provides certainty in the future, all right? You as residents, any investors or developers that come in, the ideas are there. So if there's something that the community doesn't want, those ideas are embedded. So any developer that comes in knows that this is what the community wants and this is how we are supposed to go about it. And it helps make the intentions for the future growth clear to everybody that is involved in the process, right? And the most important one, helps secure funding. You heard from Monica in transit talking how you can have all the grand ideas, all the ideas about what are the issues, we know the issues, how to deal with them, but if there's no funding, those are just going to be plans. But let's say there's a funding that gets available. Having this process is the best thing a community can do. Because other than suddenly trying to figure out, okay, now we have funding, but where should it go? If you have gone through this process, all you have to do is, to your commissioner or to that funding source, say, here it is, here are the recommendations, here it's prioritized. Now if we have the money, let's go ahead and start from the top of the list. And really, this is going to be the most fun process when you're going to come to it. So it's one hell of a great public meeting that you'll go to. Now, why do we really need to do a plan? If there's already that zoning plan you saw, the land use plan that you saw, why do we really need to do this? And I'm going to show you an example of, this is somewhere in West Palm Beach, and this is the CDMP, the Comprehensive Development Master Plan. It has pretty much the same kind of colors that you see in your zoning and land use plan also, the yellows, the red, the blue, but it's sometimes not enough. I mean, don't get me wrong, the CDMP or these kind of land use plans are important. They are the law. You need these. But sometimes they're not enough. In this case, this community decided we're going to have a vision. What is our vision? And they decided to look at that intersection, and based on what is here, the red, the dark black, and the yellow, they said this is going to be where our town center is. And using this, they went ahead and they got the town center. A typical anywhere USA, big street, can't cross through, no landscaping, the McDonald's, the big parking lots, typical. And when they were shown slides like this, they were like, no, that was the town center we wanted. Why did we get this? So you need to understand that the existing, the regulation or plan, the land use and the zoning in this case, and this is for the study area. This is your study area right here. This is the land use plan, and this is the zoning. Like I said, they're important. You need these. They're already laws. But are they enough? Do they give enough information to anybody for future development or what has already happened? It probably doesn't. This is the future land use plan. Same. The colors have been looked at in detail. They're important. There's a process to it. But sometimes even these are not enough because they do not have enough detail in this. Okay? So if you really zoom down, you don't really know what all that red would entail. What are you going to get? Are you going to get a big box or are you going to get a nice pedestrian-friendly? You don't know. That's why it is very important to advance our planning from this to something like this, where you can actually go down and say, and this is a plan from somewhere else, but where you can see where the retail is going to go. If there's existing housing, what it is. If there's a corridor and there are intersections, they have to be built in a certain way. If the building footprints, how is it going to be? That kind of detail is very important. And this is actually East Kendall. Just again, in this case, there was the Baptist Hospital, and what happens on the edge, what happens on intersections. They went through that process. This kind of detail is important, all right? Even this kind. Here you can really see that on a corridor, it even shows you what kind of landscaping. Again, I keep talking about funding. Let's say tomorrow somebody, a philanthropist, comes in and says, I got 1,000 trees to donate. Where do you want them? If you have a plan with that kind of detail, boom, you know where it can go. Same thing for if housing, if it has to be in a certain way, is it set towards the front, the parking to the back, etc. Those kind of details is what a design process can walk you through. So really, it's not only the area plan, but rendering. Somebody mentioned, is there a way to see some artistic renderings of what that area is going to look like? A Charrette process, designers can help take your ideas and put them into not only an area plan, a final area plan, but something that will show you exactly what that buildings might look like, or how they're placed, how big they need to be, etc., based on your ideas. So that process helps do that. Again, just a quick view of the East Kendall Charrette. A lot of East Kendall Charrette, just like in this area, was already built out, it's existing. As you can see, because it was existing, it is not gonna change any of those. But in areas where there was vacancy or where there was a need to improvement, etc., it went through the process to make sure what kind of improvement that has to be. Make sure, and that's why we're having this meeting. This is the second meeting. We're probably gonna try and have another meeting next month. Or if we need to have more, it's most important that we include everyone. Everybody gets to know about it, and everybody comes to it. So the idea is to include everyone, involve everyone, and find a champion. Luckily, you already have your commissioner that's already sold on this idea. He wants to have this, and it's important because he can help you take it to the next level. But you guys, as a community, are also very important. You need to stay involved, make sure that happens. And when I say have everybody involved, outreach is going to be the most important. You come to these meetings, and that's why it's important that you attend these meetings, because there's also word of mouth. You can go back, tell your neighbors that couldn't come tonight or to the last meeting that they need to come to the actual Charrette date to make sure all these ideas, all their ideas, are incorporated into the design process. So we're probably going to try, even before the Charrette, to have some kind of flyer that we can we can get to you so that you can help us distribute it, get it to door hangers, or maybe to the church or the neighborhood association or whatever. These are going to be important. Now the actual process, when I keep saying the Charrette process, the week of the Charrette process, what happens during the week? On the first day, and we usually do it on a Saturday, it's a holiday, so everybody's home, and they can attend. In the morning, we do a kind of a kickoff presentation where the commissioners or for the area can come in. You can have same kind of presentations where transit, etc., can make sure that all the data is available to you. And then, after that, there's some rules. When we sit down around the tables, sign your name. It's important because the drawings that you're going to create, however quick or whatever, quick and dirty they're going to be historic because you are going to be involved. This is going to be your plan. No speeches, all right? There's not time to say this is what I want. The best way is to argue with your pencil, and by that I don't mean like poke your neighbor in the eye, but either draw it, write it down, make it part of that plan, okay? And no idea is a bad idea. We don't want to at least not limit ourselves on that day by saying, oh, we're not going to get this. Because if you're not going to talk about it, of course you're not going to get it, okay? And same thing goes for the funding. At least for that day, yes, that reality check will have to come, but again, at least for that day, if there's something important, just for that day, don't think about funding too much. And most importantly, like I said, have fun. What happens after that kickoff presentation? We'll have tables where we're going to have the whole study area in an aerial format, and there are going to be 8 to 10 on each table, and just one design facilitator on each table. And the job that day for the design facilitator is not to draw. Their job is really to listen in or to help if there needs to be some kind of thing pointed out, etc. But it's really you guys that will be drawing or telling us in whatever format. Right? Either if you can draw, you can write, like I said, make sure that these plans become the historic part of the process, that all the ideas get embedded into that. We're probably going to have a room full of tables, folks around it, designers on each table to help you identify or even put down some of your ideas if you don't want to draw. Again, it's on a Saturday. Kids have some of the best ideas. Please bring them because these are the folks that do not drive. They are the ones that really understand what being pedestrian friendly or being able to go to the corner store means. and so we get some of the best ideas from kids. After that, the community is each table is invited to present their ideas, so the rest of the tables can also listen in. This is very important because that's where the consensus starts to build. And I have been to so many of these, and this is amazing how for most of the issues, some of the consensus is right there. When they're talking about a particular issue, you will see that already most of the tables are going to be talking about the same way of how to go about doing it or taking care of that issue. So this is, again, a presentation that is not going to be done by the designers, but is going to be done by somebody on the table that's a resident and has been a part of the process. It doesn't have to be just one person, 2 people can come in, or the whole table can get up and present their ideas. That's okay, right? But this is important because then you can start to see all the ideas, all the consensus building in there. Then what we're going to do, the designers are going to take all these ideas that we had on these. You see those maps on the back? These become the blueprints for us to really start creating more precise drawing. So, for example, you said on that street we need a boulevard, or let's say, for example, there has to be a roundabout. We want to make sure that can a roundabout fit in there, or can there be a boulevard or a median in the middle. So those kind of things, we're going to take all those ideas and start putting together into more precise, work in progress drawings. And your ideas from that Saturday are really the ones that help us create those. And we're going to set up our studios right here in the study area. We are not going to go back to our office for the whole week. We're going to bring our equipment, the drawing papers, everything, so that we can not only, and there's for 2 reasons. Because Saturday is not the only day you get to just give all your ideas. You go back and you come up with more ideas, you can come back. Come back to the design studio during the week and tell us. Also, if there are people that were not able to come on that Saturday, they can come in. So we're going to work really long hours. We usually work from 9 to 9 or 10 in the night in the studio. So not only so that you guys can come in, come back, make sure you look over our shoulders and see that what you told us on that Saturday, we're putting it together. So that you can see the plan built in front of you. But also, if we have to run out, take pictures, or measure something, we can do that. And we cannot really do that if we were to go back to our office. So we're going to set up our studios, design studio right here in the study area. And after that 1 week, we're going to try and put it all together into an area plan, some renderings that will show like what happens. Let's say this area is going to look like this. So we're going to make sure it's not only in plan, but in whatever way we can make sure that you understand those kind of, we're going to create those kind of drawings. And we're going to then present that at the end of that week, and it's still going to be called a work in progress. Remember, just because the week is over, we presented the idea, doesn't mean that the process is over. Even that day, we're going to really, the idea of that work in progress, it's still called a work in progress, and the idea of that work in progress presentation is to make sure that if we have missed something, we can incorporate that. If there are things that we did not understand or didn't put together, we can go back and make sure we do those changes. And more importantly, so that we can feedback to know that did we do what you told us. After a couple of months after that, let's say, we're going to put it all together into a charrette report. Why is the charrette report very important? It's the document, it's the most important document. For example, even now, if there has to something going in the East Kendall study area, that charrette document report is the most important one. I talked about funding. If some kind of funding comes through, this kind of document is the best way to make sure that it forms a reliable and defensible basis for change. For people, let's say, they just arrived in this area, or let's say for whatever reason they were not here during the process, they can look into it and make sure that all the ideas that the residents have talked about are in there. Improves communication, like I said. If there's funding source available, or you have to talk to your commissioner or any other funding parties, that's what is the most important document that you're going to have. And like I mentioned earlier, this report is probably going to have a whole bunch of design recommendations that you talked about or voted on during the week. Now it would be important to prioritize those. So you can say, okay, number 1, for example, is like, we want landscaping on so-and-so street, or do this or do that. That kind of prioritization is also can happen because now you're going to have that design document that can say, on page number 14 or 11, that is our priority number 1. Okay. So that really was basically what the design process is, or the charrette week is. And so what's next? We're still shooting for, hopefully for, like I said, we're probably going to try and squeeze in one meeting if possible. It's December holidays, so it's tough, but before the charrette, which we are still trying tentatively to be in January. Again, this is a very tentative timeline right now, but hopefully if everything goes according to plan, this is the timeline we're looking at, that we do the charrette sometime in January, and in the month of April, May, we put together into a design review or like a charrette report for your review. And then in June, take it in front of the Planning Advisory Board, and then by July, September of next year, the Board of County Commission for sure. Jess, you want to add anything to that? The timeline, especially?
Again, this is tentative. Things can change. But what's important, whenever the actual charrette event is scheduled, we need your participation to help get your neighbors and friends who live or are interested in the area to participate. Because the more participation we have, the more ideas we have, and the better that the end result of the charrette plan report reflects, your desires for the future of West Kendall.
And that's a very good, when we said tentative, it's not because of any other reason, it's because you guys need to be ready. You guys need to make sure that everybody can show up that day and the word gets out as much as possible. So if this is a short time, if you need to get more time, fine. If you're ready tomorrow, fine. So that's why I'm saying it's tentative. It's going to be based on how fast or how soon you guys think you are ready. Yes, ma'am.
In preparation for that, and some people said that we could ask questions or get more information. It would be really useful if on that website that you're creating, if we could have the names and the discipline of the people that are going to be working with us and their emails, especially the people that were here today, like Monica's email, so we could ask questions. And the second comment was, could you document with photographs like the major intersections along Kendall Drive?
Yes, absolutely.
I could try to do it and probably kill myself in the process.
We've already started doing that, and we'll do more, and definitely all that will be available for you for the design week. Absolutely. And even as designers, we would need that kind of data in front of us.
I haven't heard anything about the proposed southwest extension of MDX to relieve a lot of traffic, and that seems like that, however that works out, would play a big part in the planning of the charrette and the traffic flows, going west to relieve the turnpike. And I think that should be, discussed or part of the somewhat, since it changes the whole area.
Can we get somebody from MDX to come and talk about it, or?
I would expect we would discuss that at the charrette meeting. I'm sure people will come out on both sides of that issue, depending on which group you're in at the meeting. Some people for, some people against that extension. So yeah, that'll be addressed. That'll be discussed.
Definitely, like I said, even a lot of things that were, I think a couple of you talked about, like I said, landscaping for those park and rides. Monica said, these are transitory developments, but that would be a great time to see and make sure. So all the issues that were discussed, definitely you should bring them up and make that part of the process.
This whole West Kendall Corridor Charrette really was created by the vision of one person, Martha Backer. But it's so limited when you look at the area, the study area. If you bring up the study area and put it up for us for just a moment, and you look at the limited area that we're studying compared to what we did in East Kendall as an example. We need the hammocks, we need the Miami corridor to be comprehensive. Since this is one little piece of 35,000 population of a much bigger area of West Kendall, which is part of Commissioner Zapata's district, we're really taking a piece of the pie. We're not dealing with the pie. And that's a shame unless there's a plan to have another charrette for the hammocks area and that's exactly another charrette for the Tamiami area.
That's a good point.
We're just taking a piece of the pie.
I was going exactly because as somebody who was involved in the East Kendall, it was a huge area for taking a good swipe at in a week. To come up with enough good design recommendations in a week's time. So this is actually something that is, you can put your arms around even as a community.
So when Mr. Brown made the comment about MDX's new road coming in, which is going to come in off 128th Street, that's far removed from this area. And it has a huge impact in this area as well as everything south. But it's not a direct part of this study.
And to that, just to that comment itself, and like even Eric mentioned, even though it's not going to be major study area, but this has a huge impact, like you said, it's going to be part of the process. It's going to be part of the discussion. Just because the boundary stops there, we're not going to say, oh no, we can't touch anything. If there's something that's happening even here that has an impact or whatever, or there's some kind of traffic calming that needs to happen, so be it. We can definitely look just outside.
One last part of this. Since this only goes to 96th Street, would it be fair for us to ask that there would be a continuation of a future charrette that would take it to the next section, which would then be, we'd call it the Hammocks Corridor, and then the next one would be the Tamiami Corridor. Until we've completed all that, potentially all the way down to Country Walk,
Absolutely,
we
why
haven't
not?
really done the job.
Absolutely, why not? Yes. I mean, Bernie, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on David's question on the MDX extension. It may not be a bad idea to have at some point Javier from MDX come here and make a presentation, because they're right now in the planning, development, engineering phase of that extension, and they're looking at alternate corridors. And it isn't as controversial as you think. We polled the question, we polled the issue a year ago, and over 78% of the residents, not just of this corridor study, but the residents west of the turnpike are supportive of that extension, because they know the problems with traffic and how that would alleviate traffic and create counterflow traffic in the morning. So that's a strong.
Can you clarify which extension we're talking about? Because I think David was referring to 836, and I think the others, I think Linda was talking
I'm talking about 836.
836 Southwest Extension.
This is the MDX.
Yeah, but they're also doing an exit farther south.
It's actually on 28th Street.
That's a different.
No, that's a different one.
No.
That's
We're
on
talking
page
about
836 has an exit on
We're
Kendall
talking about
Drive.
Chrome Avenue to relieve the turnpike.
The 836
Another market
exit on
vision.
Kendall Drive, which directly affects this area, and has an exit on 136 at Tamiami Airport.
Creates a loop.
Yeah, the
So
loop
we can-
go around, so people go to the west so they can go north instead of everybody fighting to go.
But that's still a
Target
concept, that's
MDX
not
and-
moving any further, has it?
It's working its way somehow.
I just one question, or a couple of questions actually. I guess you mentioned, to follow up to my question earlier, is it this year that commissioners vote in reference, or next year in reference to extending the development area? Is that coming up next year?
I have no idea. This process got nothing to do with that, but what the timeline for that is, I have no idea.
Is that coming up next year?
Applications have been filed already. It's every odd year.
So when is the vote? Next year?
2015.
No, the vote is this year, 2013.
Oh, it already occurred?
Yeah, it already occurred.
Okay.
You can apply again in 2015, next year.
All right.
Every odd year.
So,
And that's
Right.
only based on people that own the land that want to do something with it. And then they have to go through a process to make a request to do that. And maybe it goes nowhere, maybe it continues on. And sometimes, Eric, perhaps you would tell them, it even has to go up to the state for further review and then come back.
That's right.
And for those who were wondering how, I think it's just basically trying to follow the corridor of a mile inside.
do you, during this charrette, do you actually tackle some of the transportation issues, mobility? Do you have folks from your public works department?
Absolutely. They're all going to be part of the process. They are going to be. We're going to try and get all of those entities, agencies on that Saturday, and even during the 2 week.
I'm just something to throw out there. We know Lennar is building thousands of homes between Kendall and 104th. Already the level of service of traffic flow on Kendall 104th is probably an F, as defined by traffic engineers. What improvements, what has been imposed by the planning office or the county in terms of Lennar's improvement? Are they supposed to widen? I think there was a project years ago where they were supposed to widen. They widened all the way to 157, I believe. Is Lennar going to widen from 157 to 167, Kendall Drive?
Oh.
I was at that hearing, and I remember because Mike Cease was being the owner of that property, and it's on the public record, they agreed to widen Kendall Drive to 3 lanes on both sides.
And so where are we with that?
So I was kind of going to inquire about that because I see the property going up and nothing.
They're actually doing it pretty soon. They have to do it when they get to, after they sell so many of the houses, they have to widen it to 6 lanes.
From 157 to 167?
A little less than 167.
Okay.
172.
I mean, you've got thousands of trips now being generated by that square mile or so. And there's no, and I know there's folks in this room who are objecting to widening 104th Street.
Yes.
And I don't want to excite you, but nevertheless.
Don't excite us.
But nevertheless, there's certainly a lot of development and a lot of growth occurring. And obviously, every 2 years, there's a vote for further development and growth. And even though this charrette, the vision should not be in terms of that, but it's wide open. What are we doing in terms of improving
And exactly
mobility?
why in a charrette, you need to talk about those things and see what kind of solutions. That's why this process, however late or early,
Right.
is a good time.
And one last thing I want to mention, and I know there's folks here who probably don't agree, but nevertheless, there's a project in the works at the Turnpike and 104th Street for an interchange. And I think that's going to improve mobility tremendously. A lot of folks now are traveling on Kendall Drive and 120th and 104th. You have to cut through residential areas to get to access. So I think it affects us in West Kendall here tremendously. A lot of you might not know about it, but there's a lot of opposition against this project. And it's a project we certainly need here in West Kendall to have direct access to the Turnpike. So I would encourage everyone to call their representative, their commissioner, and let them know, in fact, that this project is needed for us in West Kendall.
You want to go spend the town and work with DOT too?
And I think me and Eric were also talking about it earlier, before the...
It's full disclosure.
Yeah, that's
Also, it's a good idea, always,
I'm a resident.
if we can have some kind of steering committee also, folks, because we would need at least a core group that stays involved, has a lot of meetings, and somebody who can, if they need to get together and arrange an event real quick related to the charrette, a core group. So that's something to think about also, if you want to be part of the steering committee group or...
I think you presented it very, very well. I participated in the East Kendall Charrette because I actually grew up there and I knew every corner and every street because I was from when I was 12. And my parents still live there. So I went with my mother and we participated, and it's a great experience. And I have been pushing for this program, and what I would like to see too are people like David Brown, who's a developer, and people who have offices, like the guy who owns Sesame Step on Kendall Drive, and the Burger King people, and some of the people that really are in right on the Kendall Drive corridor. And what Lawrence was saying about, and I asked that it be increased too last week or whenever we had the last meeting.
Doesn't make sense just to do the pond.
But on the other hand, if we can work from around it and make it I think what Joe Martinez kind of wanted was kind of like a main street. I think Zapata would like it to look like a nice community, and it could shine right there. The rest of the areas really are a lot of residential. And we do have like strip shopping centers, but and that's what East Kendall was too. And if we can identify the parks that we can fix up and the mobility from that, off that Kendall Drive, and then identify areas that we can work on in the surrounding areas as well.
And you bring up a good point, and it's not unusual, even in the past for some other charrette areas, where some of the recommendations that were in the study area could be used for, let's say, if the corridor improvement could be extended. Right. So, that's always there. But having, future charrettes is always, but I will always recommend that you do that you at least look at study area that you can put your arms around and make sure, you look at everything, within that. Rather than biting off so much that there's always just enough things that you were not able to get.
If you look at the geographic area, the size of this area, compared to what we did in East Kendall, this is a quarter's worth.
I know.
And when Martha starts talking about the parks, the big regional park that's at 120th Street, from 120th to 112th, west of 157th Avenue, that has a huge impact on this area. But it's not part of this area.
A 1 square or 2 square mile, and how much is this? I guess, do you have a quick idea?
Well, the resolution that the Board of County Commissioners passed requesting this particular study was the Kendall corridor specifically. There wasn't a specific northern or southern boundary, but it was intended to focus on the Kendall corridor. So again, I think Shalindra mentioned if there's a specific issue, in relative proximity to this, we can look at it if it's beyond the half-mile boundary. But again, the idea is to focus on the Kendall Drive in this, 137 home specifically.
I'm sorry if I'm the only one speaking to this issue, but other people are nodding their heads and commenting. But in order to be comprehensive, this really needs to go down to at least 100.
But I think you had a great idea. You said a second or a third.
Well, as long as we can get a commitment somehow, and there will be a second and a third, because all these still remain in Commissioner Zapata's district. And so we're only doing a piece of his pie. So
This
please.
isn't a map, this is just the study of the corridor.
I know, but
I understand.
Martha, when we talk about regional parks and schools and all the other things that are in that area around Miami Airport, it all impacts what we would be talking about here. It all fits together.
The parks on 117th impact what's going to happen in the other areas too.
So I think we're just cheating ourselves not to go bigger.
You got it.
How many corridors make up Kendall, West Kendall? I mean, is this all driven by transit only? I mean, the word corridor seems to be only driven by transit.
The corridor is the Kendall Drive itself.
Okay. So it's boundary based on the traffic that generates, correct? So how many? So just I would say Kendall is one corridor, and Killian is another corridor, and so is it. So it's all driven by. Is there a master plan that includes all the west corridors? Okay.
The fact is, there was no master plan
Yeah,
for all of Miami.
Right, but how do you study it?
From a perspective of transit, because they have to have an integrated.
Transit, as you heard, Kendall, they're really focusing on, for this area, they're really focusing on Kendall the most.
Yeah, all I wanted to, there's been questions by a couple of people about going into the green area and why we're looking at everything. Unlike the East Kendall Charrette that we've done before, everything involved redevelopment because everything was built out. Here, that green area has been identified by our planning staff, Mark Warner and his staff, as the urban expansion area. That is we're going to expand the urban development boundary for development in the future. This is where it's going to happen for the county, this section of the county. And what we have an opportunity is not only to plan for the redevelopment of what's already there and how we change what's there as property owners redevelop their properties or sell them and new people come in, and there's incentives to change the look, the aesthetic, the feel of Kendall Drive on what's there. But we also have the chance to plan through this process and say, this is what the community wants, the area in the urban expansion area, that green area, what we want it, if you're going to develop that, if you're going to expand the UDP, this is what we want it to look like.
This is how it should be.
This is how it should be. And that's the importance of this process, and that's why it's all included all the way up to the home.
That's why the timing is right.
Where's West Kendall Baptist? Would you show us where it is?
White area.
Blue area.
Blue.
With the water.
This one?
Thank you. Could you tell us, while we're here together, the white area that's in that rest of that area that's undeveloped? What's happening?
Commercial.
Yes, but what is happening with that? It was in bankruptcy for a while. It flipped over to somebody else. Is anybody here in the room? Eric, could you tell us where?
We
all
have
that it's not developed yet.
It's part of the Kendall Town Center DRI, and we had some site plans come in years ago. They came in for some changes, but nothing's really happened recently. We haven't heard anything on it recently.
So, who owns it now?
I think he was at the last meeting. He was here at the last meeting, wasn't he? Jess, do you remember who owns it?
Yeah, it's Howard Hughes.
Hughes. Howard Hughes.
I hate to break this up. This has been such an extraordinary meeting, but the library's going to kick us out. So
just one more thing before we leave. Just one more thing before we break.
She has some problem. We need a
between now and January, if you're driving around or if you travel somewhere and you see something that you like, as far as development or parks or landscaping, whatever, take a picture and bring it with you to the shred when we have that shred in January, okay?